behind the scenes. But, yeah, whether it's enough, I still don't believe that.
The CW was something reported by theathletic.com with Stuart Mandel. Max Olson was part of that article. And Mandel, in the article, mentioned that the CW had emerged as a new potential partner. John Alran yesterday saying that sources telling me that CW reps did hold initial talks with the conference, but those talks never got serious. The Pac-12 expects to wind up with deals that combine traditional TV with streaming, but there's little chance the CW will end up with those rights. Bob Thompson earlier today said that that is about, or was as in as possibly even Ion, which was reported, I believe, by Brett McMurphy, who was involved. They could have talks. That means there's something, but that doesn't mean that they'll continue on. Jim Williams mentioned something about the CW, but also mentioned in that some of the landmines that could be also in the way. Now, the ACC, Jim Phillips. This is a conference, of course, that has been pretty quiet, although there's been a couple of its members that have said, hey, there's a little squeaky wheel here because the amount of money, we've got to be careful not to be left behind, including from the start of the last month or so, Florida State and then others. Jim Phillips signs a 3-year extension as the commissioner of the ACC. What does this say in a way? First of all, congratulations. What does this also say? Because wasn't the Big Ten someone that was interested in him, we would think, because he'd been a part of that discussion before?
Yeah, I think that, because he was the AD at Northwestern before he took the ACC gig to take over for John Swofford. I think it says that the ACC wants some consistency in these uncertain times, although they've got the most certainty of anybody because of the grant of rights. It is interesting to me. I mean, some of these contracts are shorter than you would think for conference commissioners. You know, in the NFL, like Roger Goodell seemingly has like a 700-year contract. I know that that's not true, but it just kind of gets.
Oh no, it's not, because the owners sometimes will try to cut both of them off if they could.
Well, one owner. But the rest of them seem to like him. So, but it's 3 years, and that gets them, down to less than a decade in the grant of rights. So maybe then they can look at something different then. But I think that, they want a little consistency. I think that's what it means the most. And maybe, I wonder if Jim Phillips, because he's not clearly not a mover and a shaker like Kevin Warren is. So if he was up for the Big Ten job, would they have wanted him because they want somebody who's a little bit more, let's keep the shit pointed in one direction?
What do owners do when they fire a coach? They usually get the different opposite personality, correct?
Yeah. But Kevin Warren wasn't fired. He left. So do you want a guy who's Kevin Warren light, or do you want something else? I don't know. Or maybe Jim Phillips had never really gotten that far down the road there.
Yeah. So he's now the ACC commissioner, at least extended, and good for him, because that conference, again, has been pretty quiet other than what we had from Florida State, North Carolina, and a couple of others recently.
Yeah, I mean, good for them. Times out well that there's still plenty of flexibility depending on how the waves roll in. 3 years from now, he's not locked in like the conference itself to some ridiculously long-term deal. So that's nice to have some security, but also some freedom not too far in the future just in case things go wonky. But, what is the Big Ten going to do as far as their commissioner spot? That's what their big question remains. And not that they necessarily were all in on Jim Phillips, but that was clearly a name that was talked about and thrown out there and just made sense. So, very interested in what they do and what that person's vision is for the future, because along with, Greg Sankey, that's going to be, two of the biggest, most influential people, powerful people in college athletics, whoever that person is when they're named. So they will have, without a doubt, a hand or finger on the blueprint of kind of the way forward in so many ways, because, he's going to be the voice of those Big Ten schools. So, that's an important spot. We saw the impact that Kevin Warren had. Not that the next guy necessarily has to change the face of football, out west the way that Kevin Warren did, but there are changes afoot everywhere you look, or at least potentially in the works, or as possibilities out there that you can see in the not-too-distant future. So that person's going to have some workings with all of that, and I'm very curious who they decide should be responsible.
All right, so Garrett, Bob Thompson, I mentioned his tweet. I just sent you a note. Did you get that one? Bob Thompson made the comment actually talking about CW. They may be the only ones, CW and Ion, not talking to the conference. And then Jim Williams, who mentioned CW before, you're right, anything is possible at this point. We don't know who is talking to the Pac-12. We should wait and see how that ends and might be surprised who is part of the deal. My point was CW and Ion are at least legit outlets. If you're looking for exposure, you've got to find it somewhere, even if it may not be the alphabet that you want to use when it comes to whatever network we're talking about. All right, Cliff Kingsbury's back in